Hey, Alan here with DustyHikers.com, and today I'm going to be reviewing a shoe that I reviewed last year and that I also reviewed again this year, and it performed very, very well once again. That's the Adidas Terrex Swift R3, or for your Europeans, the Adidas Terrex Swift R3. I've spent a year in this shoe. I've got probably at this point a couple hundred miles on this shoe. I do have like 15 shoes in my closet at this point, so I don't hike in this shoe every day, but I do have a lot to say about this shoe, and it's an excellent shoe. Let's get into it. Hey, if you're new to my channel, what I do every year is I buy a bunch of hiking shoes, test those shoes against each other, and then share those results with you. I think this is a really good way to kind of figure out what's on the market, what's working, what's not. And so I'm comparing these shoes against each other. They're all amazing shoes. This shoe again did very well in testing this year once again. So what I'm going to go over with you right now is comfort and weight, traction, stability, and then protection, and then just kind of go over some final thoughts on this shoe. So for testing, just briefly, once again, what I do is I spend about 2 months in these shoes. I've got about 30 miles in each of these shoes. This shoe at this point, because I've had it for a year, I've probably got close to 200 or 300 miles in this shoe. I take notes on how they perform on trail. I kind of scamper off trail and see how they perform in those situations. I also run head-to-head testing on different criteria and then rank the shoes and compile all of that data and share it with you. Okay, so for comfort and weight, this shoe comes in at 1.04 pounds or about 474 grams. It's the second heaviest shoe of the shoes that I tested this year, the heaviest being the Salewa Mountain Trainer Light GTX. This is a shoe that's sort of billed by the name Swift R3 as being sort of a light, fast hiker. I would not characterize this as a light, fast hiker. It does have a lot of really good qualities, and I think it's a great shoe that could work even for backpacking, but I would not consider it to be Swift of the shoes that I tested. Specifically on comfort, I found this shoe to be quite rigid out of the box. I did experience heel slip a year ago for, I don't know, maybe the first week or so. And that's really due to the outsole by Continental. This is an extremely rigid outsole. It also does not have the most reactive EVA midsole on the market. I think it's adequate, and I would say comfort is not a downside of the shoe. It's just not the most comfortable hiking shoe I've ever worn. Another issue that I had with this shoe is that you can see that the toe is slightly tapered. So on steep downhill descents, my pinky toe would get kind of crimped a little bit on this side of the shoe, but it never really caused me problems. I never got blisters. And all in all, this is a relatively comfortable shoe. Again, it's not the most comfortable shoe on the market, but comfort is not a detraction for me on this shoe. Okay, next up is traction. This shoe has the Continental outsole. This is a very, very rigid rubber compound, and so it wears very well. Again, this is 200 or 300 miles at this point, and I have an outside heel strike right here, and there is really no visible evidence of any wear on the bottom of the shoe, which is amazing. And that's what you're gonna get whenever you have a hard rubber compound like this. Some of the other shoes that I tested have soft rubber compounds, which provide a lot more grip. This shoe provides a lot of traction. The lugs on the bottom of this shoe are sort of your traditional chevron lugs. There are 4.5 millimeter deep lugs, which are quite deep. The chevrons obviously go in the opposite direction on the heel. So what I do for traction is obviously just time spent on trail, how they perform in different types of hiking scenarios and different types of surfaces, rocks, mud, leaves, and dirt, and that sort of thing. And then the other thing that I do to kind of see which of the 5 shoes really performs the best in traction is I put a different shoe on each foot, and I scamper up this steep hill that is just loose dirt and debris, and then see which one gives me sort of more purchase as I'm trying to claw my way up this hill. This shoe won the competition this year for traction. It's an amazing outsole, I think, for traction specifically on loose debris and dirt and things like that. But I think it also, even though it's quite rigid and hard, I think it does pretty well on other types of substrates like wet rock and things like that. It's not the best on smooth surfaces, but it does do very well, I think, overall for traction. Hey, thank you for sticking around. You've outperformed most of YouTube viewers at this point since you're still here. One thing that you could really do if you want to help me out is just subscribe. You can use that as a bookmark. I do this testing all the time. So if you need to buy a new pair of hiking shoes every year, come back to my channel and just kind of see what I've been testing and what I think is really good on the market in that moment. The other thing that you could do is help me out monetarily by going in the link and purchasing this shoe. I buy all of these shoes myself, and so far on this channel, I'm probably thousands of dollars in at this point. I recently just got monetized, so thank you all so much for subscribing. And then finally, the last thing that you could do is leave a comment. Do you have this shoe? Do you like this shoe? Is it a shoe that you use for something other than hiking? I think there's a lot of people that use this shoe for outdoor sports like paintball or frisbee golf, things like that. So leave a comment comment and share with the community your experience with the shoe. Am I totally off base on this shoe? Is it horrible? Or do you think it's even better than what I'm billing it as? Okay, next up is protection. So for protection, again, it's time spent on trail, going off trail, seeing how the shoe reacts in different types of situations. So really protection, you're kind of looking at your upper and then also looking at the sole. For the upper, I don't do specific testing other than just spending time out in the woods, hiking in the shoe. I would say on the upper that because of the materials choices that Adidas went with, these shoes do provide pretty decent protection for your uppers. It does have a toe cap, which is quite rigid. I think it's rubber. It could be thermoplastic, but it provides, I think, really, really good protection for your toes. It also has we'll talk about this in a minute, but it has the Pro Moderator. This is all very hard plastic. The Pro Moderator is sort of the stability system for the shoe. This is all very hard plastic, and so that's going to protect all of this sort of lower sides of your foot. And then finally, for protection, I also do another set of head-to-head testing. So I put a different shoe on each foot. I step on a stone to see which shoe transfers less of the sort of the shape and the feel of that stone to the bottom of my foot. This shoe also won first place for protection. In fact, in the testing that I did this year, this shoe won the shoe for best protection and traction. This again is a very, very rigid outsole. It's super hard rubber. It also has a rock plate in it, which I think kind of basically extends the whole length of the shoe. So right here it says protection plate. I'm not sure if that's coming through on the camera, but I'm not sure if that runs the entire length of the shoe. But again, with this super hard rubber compound, that is the protection plate. You really, when you step on a stone on this, you're just kind of teetering. The shoe doesn't deform at all. Although it does provide a lot of protection, I would say it might be overkill. The shoe could be improved, I believe, if they went with a less rigid outsole that maybe wears out a little bit more quickly, but it would also provide better traction and grip, I think, in different types of scenarios. And I think it would also just be more comfortable if they didn't have such a rigid outsole. That's my personal opinion. I would rather have something that wears out a little bit sooner, but then is a little bit more reactive and kind of deforms as you're stepping over material and stuff on the trail. Okay, so finally for stability, these are very stable shoes. They got second place for stability. So the shoe that they lost to is the one that I feel like is the best shoe of the year of the shoes that I tested. If you want to check out what that shoe is, that video will probably show up at the end, but basically it's like best hiking shoes of the year. That shoe beats this shoe. It's from a really famous hiking shoe brand. But again, this is a very good shoe. For stability specifically, what Adidas brings to the table is this thing called Pro Moderator. And I don't know if this really comes through on the camera, but do you see this lower section here? That's very hard rubber that sort of cups the midsole and also your heel, and it also extends here. You can see where it says Swift R right there. That whole piece, right, it's this kind of like external hard plastic that really holds your foot in place. It's like your foot is sitting in this cradle, and it's very stable for lateral stability. So if I was going off trail and I was kind of like, in some kind of unusual situation where the shoe was kind of torquing, I never felt like my heel was coming out of the back of this shoe. So it is a very stable shoe, again, winning second place for stability this year. Okay, final thoughts. 1 year on, I am still a huge fan of this shoe, the Adidas Terrex Swift R3. It performs very well in lots of different hiking situations. It's a shoe that I go to all the time if I want to go for a training hike. I'm going to do a through hike in a month, and so this is a shoe that if I'm just going out for like a 5-mile hike right outside my door here, then this is a shoe that I often bring with me, especially on sort of muddy days. It's got a lot of lower protection here for stepping through mud and stuff like that. It's not gonna seep into the uppers at all. So finally, 1 year on with the shoe, a couple 300 miles at this point, testing them in 2 different separate rounds of testing. They performed very well. Last year they got second place for total points. This year they got 2 first place and a second place in all the testing that I did. It's an excellent shoe. A lot of people love this shoe, and I think it's also going to fit a lot of feet. All right, that's it for the Adidas Terrex Swift R3 1-year review. I will see you guys in the next one.